Alright, welcome back. Now we're on part 2 of making our animation. So, last time we were over here where we had all our animation and we had it stuck into our animation state property. Now, if you didn't follow along, you could always go into my drive, which I have my C++ scripts, and I have the animation start thing where you could just click, drag it in here. It's gonna ask to import. You just press import and you'll have everything. You'll have this guy here, which you just drag in here, and it's gonna be this guy. So you'll have all these files. You just drag it in here, and then you press edit, and you have everything in here. Now, without further ado, let's actually start scripting. So we're here, and what we actually have between us different is, we have 4 property parameters, which are files, which I use to connect the .anim, and then we also have a private pointer to an object mesh skinned. So how do we code this? And actually the ObjectMeshSkinned class already has the whole steps written down. I write it a little bit differently, but it still gets the job done whether you want to copy their way. And if you're already a programmer, you could always look over here and they have an example. If not, you could just follow along. And let's start. So the first thing we're going to do is actually close this because we don't need it. Increase the zoom, should be good. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is actually use that pointer that we have, the private mesh skin pointer, and connect it to the class itself. So main character, there we go. Alright, main character equals to, and now we need it to point to the mesh skinned. Now Unigine has 3 of their own custom smart pointers, so we're going to go into Unigine and we're going to do pointer underscore cast, and now we have 3 options. We have a checked, dynamic, and static. Static means it won't change its pointer class. Dynamic means it can switch at will, and then checked means to check if the pointer has, or to check if that object has this pointer. So now we use our angular brackets, and then inside the angle brackets we're going to choose what kind of class we want. So we go back into Unigine, object mesh skinned, of course, there we go, and then we add curly circle brackets. Now what does this line mean? Let's actually write node here. So what does this line mean? This line basically means our private pointer is going to be inside pointing at this node, and then we're going to check with this pointer cast that if it has this class. Now if this object has this class, it's gonna take the object's pointer and point it to the main character. If it doesn't have this class, it's gonna return null or an error exception handle. So that's done. Let's do our first step, which is to set the number of layers. So main character, legendary brackets, and then set num layers, and we're going to choose how many layers we want. In this code I decided to give 4 layers, but I'm not going to do all 4. I'm only going to do the first one, and for your practice / homework I want you to do the rest of the 3. So over here we're going to press 1. That means we're only going to have 1 layer. If we don't write anything, it will by default should be 1. If not, no, you need at least minimum 1. Alright, next what are we going to do? Perfect. We are going to do the second option, which is actually going to be this one. I want to do this one first because it will help do the other ones later. So we're going to add, since we chose how many layers, meaning how many animations we're going to have, we're going to now actually add the so-called animation. And now if we go inside here, we will look and you'll notice that it has a certain argument and it's a constant character pointer to a path. So how do we do this? there's like a few ways, but the fastest way would be to actually just make a temporary one in scope, pointer, I'm gonna call it idle, because we're gonna choose idle, and I'm just gonna copy it and paste it inside the argument bracket so it gets connected. Now how do we connect this to our animation? Because what it's asking for is adding the animation, and our animation, if we look here, is a property parameter and it's a file. So we have this thing inside Unigine itself. It's called a file system class, which basically allows you to get the GUID and the link and the file path, because what it's asking for is the whole file path. Now how do we use this? We use the file system, and then we use the colons again, and we say get GUID. Now inside the brackets, we're gonna choose what we want to get the GUID of. So we're gonna choose the file parameter that we were looking for. In our case is the idle anim, and then we're gonna do a dot and a get raw. We're always gonna get raw, and then that is enough, but we need to do one more step, because we need to actually have to get the system string. If we don't do this step, it's gonna give us an error. I think last time I tried it gave me an error, and if it didn't, then I guess I just messed it up. But anyways, one more thing would be the next step, which is going to be this one. Now let's set the layer, meaning now that we actually set the amount of layers, we set the animation, let's connect the animation to the layer that the class or the pointer can connect stuff to. So we're gonna do a set layer, and we're gonna have a few arguments. First is the layer number. Layers are in arrays, so by default the first layer is always going to be 0. Bool is whether you want it to be running or not. We're going to choose true, so it is running. And then float is how much you want it to be run. We're going to talk more about this on the next episode. For now, we're just going to keep it as 1. And if you're going to do the other file parameters, make sure that there's weight is 0 for now. So what's the last step? The last thing we're going to do is actually set the animation, meaning we let the computer know that this is the animation we're going to choose at the moment. So main character, and then we're going to do the arrows, and we do set animation. Now over here we have 2 arguments. Oops. We have 2 arguments, and they're both the same arguments. So first things first, it's asking for the layer, so in our case it's going to be 0, and then it's asking for the character path, which was here, or it's asking for the animation number. Now if we hover over what we wrote here, the add animation one, which asks for the constant character, it has an int overload, meaning we can have an int idle number, which will return a number for this guy, and then we can use that number as our int animation number, thus saving us the option to write this over and over again. So are we done? No, we're not. We still have one more thing to do. Now we created a pointer, we added the number of animations we have, we added the animations itself, we connected them, and now we made the animation run on this layer. Now what's next? We actually have to play it step by step. So in the last step right here, it says play the added animation by calling the set frame. So every frame, what frame of the animation do you want to play? Because if we look here, the animation is run through frames. So what we do is we go main character, we go into brackets, and we're going to use the set frame, and then it's going to ask for argument. First, the layer number. The layer number we've chosen is 0, and then it's going to ask for the frame. Now for frame, we're going to do a very simple Unigine. We're going to ask for the game class, and we're going to ask for the time. So in 1 second, how many frames do you want? Now this is a good time to actually have some kind of property parameter like an int number that tells you how many FPS, but just to make it easier for us, we're gonna say 30 frames per second. So in 1 second we're gonna play each frame, we're gonna play 30 frames in 1 second. Alright, I think that should be enough. Let's just double check it. And now we actually have the object playing the animation properly. Now to make sure that the animation actually plays permanently, the loop button must be on. If it's off, it's just gonna stop after running through the whole animation once. So now we have an animation being played via code. Alright. Next episode we're gonna talk about how to blend between animations and switch animations by pressing buttons or by any triggers or something. But until then, I think I talked enough about how to set up animations. Alright, next time we'll see you again. Goodbye.